Thank you. I call Allan Allan to be followed by Ariane Burgess.
Presiding Officer, the fact that we have debated the same issue twice in this Parliament in the space of 36 hours says something significant. As indicated in the members' debate last night, I have never had to confront anything quite like the issue of highly protected marine areas before, a policy to which, to the best of my recollection, literally every single person of the many in my island community who have offered me a view is strongly opposed. As I mentioned last night, even when I was showing a local primary school round the Parliament recently, the first thing the kids wanted to ask me about was HPMAs. That is a measure of where things have now reached in the Western Isles at any rate. Presiding Officer, there is an undoubted need to address biodiversity loss in our seas, so I certainly do not make any case today for unrestricted fishing. And I am aware that the Tories who had HPMAs in their own election manifesto are playing political games with their own motion today. Yet the problem with HPMAs is that while only affecting 10% of our sea area, we will not know for 2 years yet which 10% that is. And in the meantime, every coastal community in Scotland, particularly those on the west coast, not unreasonably has fears that it is going to be them. The prospect of a virtually total ban on all fishing activity in any one of our most fragile communities would, in fact, disproportionately affect some of the very forms of fishing which have the smallest environmental impacts. In areas fished by smaller vessels, like many of those in my own constituency, there is little realistic prospect of established fishing businesses, or indeed aquaculture or fish processing businesses, finding somewhere else to go to nearby. I know that the scenario I describe there is not what the Government seeks. The very encouraging tone struck by the First Minister and other ministers in recent weeks, indicating that HPMAs will not be imposed on unwilling communities, is very helpful and much welcomed locally. The Government amendment today, I would also acknowledge, goes some way towards recognising the fears that exist, although I regret almost certainly not yet far enough for my constituents. I realise why the Government has to wait for the scrutiny of the consultation responses before it can commit to action, but I can see locally what the Government must themselves increasingly now suspect, and that is the sheer depth of opposition that exists in many island communities to the proposals as they presently stand. After much thought, therefore, I am going to register those concerns in a very reluctant vote against the Government's own amendment. In case anyone imagines I do such things lightly, I am someone who believes quite unapologetically that politics is a team sport. I am not one of those types who suffers from delusions that the lone brilliance of the tennis player is very often required or helpful on the political football pitch. But I feel I do have little choice today but to apply some real pressure on behalf of my genuinely worried island constituents. HPMAs, as the policy presently stands, needs to be rethought, and sooner rather than later. I welcome the encouraging way in which the Minister has engaged with those concerns today.
Thank you. I call Ariane Burgess to be followed by Fulton McGregor.